Welcome to the Value of Recruitment podcast with me, John Brooks. Sponsored by Atlas, the recruitment platform helping you become an AI-powered recruiter. This week, my guest is Dandan Zhu, founder of DG Recruits, a rec-to-rec agency based in New York. Dandan previously set up an exec search practice before founding her own agency, and she's even written a book on becoming a great recruiter. So she brings some really interesting perspectives. We talk about how recruiters can prove they're the best at what they do through personal branding, and how that allows you to be selective about the clients you work with. Dandan also explains how recruiters can learn from the medical and legal industries and charge more for the value we create for clients. Enjoy the show. I hope you find it valuable. Dandan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, John.
Well, I'm really excited to have you here. You've been a recruiter yourself. You set up an exec search practice. You now recruit for recruiters, which is always an interesting perspective. And you've written a book. So you've written a book on recruitment. So we'll talk more about that later. But I'm excited to get all your viewpoints on recruitment and everything in our industry.
Thank you so much. Excited to share and answer any questions.
Perfect. Well, the first question, let's kick off with the big one. How valuable is recruitment in your eyes?
In my eyes, obviously, I think it's a very valuable business just from a technical statistical perspective of what it is in every single country. And you'll see this in most developed countries, is that there is a significant demand for recruitment businesses, just because the talent that's available to do specific types of roles are very few and far between. And so you really need these third-party people to come in and help on these very tight niches, so that the value is undeniable, that you need them specifically in these high-value niches where there is an actual incentive for the recruitment firm to also survive and provide services within, right? But in terms of just across the board, recruitment is the number one challenge in every single organization, from the lowest paid person to the highest paid person. And the fact is, recruitment can't exist in some of the lower paid rungs because there isn't enough value for recruitment businesses to service those positions. But certainly in the rungs where there is a mutual benefit, that's where absolutely there is a huge value, both from the recruitment firm's perspective, as well as the demand for the service to help find qualified, great, awesome, game-changing employees.
Yeah, and I think game-changing is a really nice phrase there. When a client of ours is paying an agency to get someone in, they don't want someone run-of-the-mill. They're paying a pretty chunky fee.
Right.
They want a return on that. They want a game-changing difference. They want someone, and of course, as we know, people can make the difference. Not everyone is the same, so you get that top person, and it's going to make the difference. Now, I talk a lot about standing out and differentiating ourselves. So there are a lot of recruitment agencies in the UK, in the US, where you are. So standing out and being known for something is really important. So obviously you work with a lot of recruitment agencies, but first of all, your own agency, how have you set about standing out? What differentiates you?
I think in my current agency, DG Recruit, what we've done that was very revolutionary in 2018 was heavily invest into content. And we were one of the first to really do that, is to really dive into using personalized content, business content, a nice mix of both professional and personal, about our knowledge in the sector. So when people are talking to us, they're not just oh, what do you know about it? They already know because they've been reading the large volume of information we've been sharing over the years, over the months, over the weeks that they've been following me and my team's perspectives on the industry, on the profession. So content is a huge differentiator. And we see that across a lot of the startup recruitment boutiques they're leveraging content to very, very powerful results compared to just say hitting the phone, smiling and dialing, not having an online presence at all, which I think is dangerous in today's world, since a lot of people that I have coached have struggled with understanding this concept, because I try to explain to them, okay, you're saying you're the best recruiter in the sector, yet there is no information on the internet that says that. You don't have testimonials. You don't have a robust LinkedIn network. You don't have a robust interaction with people in your industry on LinkedIn. You don't really have any clout. So who's to say you are the best other than taking your word for it? So the internet today is a justifier, is a legitimizer, obviously depending on what you say and how you say it, because obviously if you do a bad job at it, it could hurt your business. But if you do it right, it should really make you stand out. And then obviously once people engage with you, that has to continue. You can't just be a great online presence and then be an absolute dud when people talk to you. You have to show people you know what you're doing. You know how the business works. You know how to help people get what they want from your services and your engagement. So there's the online marketing element. Then there's the real life interaction and impact element. Both need to exist for somebody to truly stand out in a positive, good way for their business.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm so much from a pricing perspective, I'm really interested in that initial impact that you can make. It used to be that you'd go into a pitch and the client might know something of the brand, but they're really testing you. The point of a pitch was to quiz you and say, look, are you good enough to work with me on this role, find these people for me?
Yeah.
Now, as you say, you've got this opportunity to go into a meeting with a client you've never met before, and they can say, wow, I already trust you.
Right.
I already value you.
Right.
And in terms of them pitching your price, they say, yeah, I'm happy to pay within reason the price. I will work on your terms because I want you.
Right.
And that's really powerful. Whereas it used to be, the pitch was all about, am I going to take you? There's this deal. How much do I trust you? The price probably comes down in order to, you get the business. So it's really changed. And it can make a huge difference to the revenue, to the fees you charge. So I like that. I love that. Yeah. You go into a pitch and say, we're the best. Yeah, prove it. What is the evidence?
Right.
But if you've had those conversations in advance, then the client already believes. It's not a test anymore. Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you so much. And you do a great job. I mean, that's how I've got to know you, through your content, and that's taken you into writing the book and the podcasts and everything else. In terms of your clients now, so the other recruitment agencies you work for, what do you see them doing? So obviously there's the content piece. What else are they doing to stand out and to get noticed and to prove their value to their clients?
For the clients that we work with a very small group of elite clients that we really enjoy their partnership. They're just good business people. They try to do right by their staff. They try to do right by their clients. They err on the side of being nicer rather than being more harsh. So the people that we work with tend to have the same quality of just a genuine care into their job and into running their business. So both from a production perspective, the way they treat clients and candidates, it's that ethical manner, right? They're not going to be stabbing them in the back. They're not going to be saying something that isn't true. They're going to be acting in an ethical manner. And both the same thing goes internally as well, how they treat their staff, how they're going to promote their people, how they're going to give people grace and give people support, and give people training. So I think that those are the things that differentiates our client book from everybody else. And obviously, because we only service the boutique sector, there are lots of great managers at big recruitment firms. But in those companies, the people that work there aren't going to have as much control over their business, over the way they do business, over their future, right? So those are the reasons why we don't work with these large recruitment agencies, even though we have in the past. And it was a decision we made around 2020 when we were looking at our business and how we wanted to internally change our structure of how we work. It really became clear that we want to focus on the types of clients that give their producers more freedom, more power, more control, and more reward. And you're really going to find that at boutique recruitment businesses.
Yeah. And that, so as you say, that being selective, so that was a strategy, but when you're selective, you then talk about that through your content. And that feels like another differentiator for you to say, look, we aren't going to introduce you to everyone. If we work with someone, we work with them because they're good. So you're already that kind of qualifier of value in terms of where your candidates might want to work.
Right.
I actually, having seen that, was that a deliberate strategy from you, first of all?
Well, it was a lifestyle choice that we made, that we only want to service clients that we enjoy working with. And in the recruitment sector, unfortunately, there are many owners that are well off and rich and successful, but they're terrible people. They're just not so great. And this actually happens in every single industry. So it's not unique to us. However, in the recruitment world, we have that choice. Do we want to work with this client or not? Do we want to deal with their unethical ways of how they try to screw over their partners or their staff or whoever else? What would be the point of that? I can send this wonderful candidate to client A or client B. Why does any of them have to be a jerk? Right? So it was a lifestyle choice that we decided we don't want to work with jerks anymore. We've exceeded that part of our, survival stage of the running a recruitment firm. That we don't need to survive anymore. We can just thrive. We can decide which clients we want to work with and why. And if we see something we don't like to see, we can just walk away. There are plenty of fish in the sea. We have an existing book. We have a wonderful inflow of new client requests all the time. So we are in the power seat. We can decide who gets our time and why should we partner. And if we don't see any value in that and we're being treated like dirt, you can assume that your candidate will also be treated like dirt. And so that would not be good in terms of just branding. We don't want any client to say, wow, DG Recruit has a bunch of really awful clients. That would be terrible.
Yeah, definitely. And in effect, what you're saying, if a new client comes to you, you're almost saying to them, look, if we select you, it's a badge of honor. So
yes.
That's almost
you're one of the good ones
for them. Exactly. But
yeah,
but that's creating value. How do you signal that you're a good one in a congested market? Well, actually, in your case, right? No. DG Recruit represents us. They've audited us, at least on a non-jerk perspective. They think we're a good place to work, and therefore that's valuable. That's a useful thing. So I really like that.
Thank you.
Sorry. Why did you? So when you were recruiting for your previous firm, you weren't in the rec-to-rec space. So what did you see in the recruitment industry, as in recruiting for the recruitment industry, that attracted you? Why? Because you could have set up an agency doing anything, right? So why did you choose recruitment as your market?
Well, I think the logical thing that most people do, especially when we're moving recruiters from one job to another, is that they will continue in the existing vertical. So if you're like an accounting and finance recruiter, you'll continue in that vertical. If you're a legal recruiter, you'll continue, right? So most people will just focus on their niche unless they hate it. For me, it was really that I lacked intellectual curiosity in life sciences and pharmaceutical recruitment, which was what I did for 5 years at a very high level in terms of production value. I just personally did not take any interest in that sector, even though I did financially very well and I had a lot of great contacts and, I really understood, the basics of the industry. I sometimes it strikes me when I sit back and I think to myself, oh my God, I've recruited for all of these tier 1 pharmaceutical firms, these venture capital funds, and I never at one point even memorized not one client drug name. That is how little of the industry I cared about. What I cared about was the people helping move this individual who could be making 50,000 more. I care about that individual. I care about this client that doesn't have a regulatory writer. As to the drug and as to what it therapeutic area, zero interest at all. And so when it came to, I retired when I was 28. I didn't have to work anymore because I made a lot of money in real estate through recruitment income and smart investment decisions. I decided I just don't want to do life sciences recruiting anymore. No longer was it about survival. No longer was it about money. So at that point, it's like, why do I have to bill $800,000 a year? I don't have to. I could just chill on a beach for all I care, right? Like I don't have to work anymore. So when you're faced with a situation where essentially you won the lottery, you don't have to work anymore, then you have to do something you're genuinely interested in. Or else what would be the point? You don't need money anymore. I don't have an insane lifestyle where I have to fund a mansion and 3 Lamborghinis. Unless you have that sort of consumption lifestyle, you really don't have to do something that you're not interested in. So that's why I unequivocally said, I'm just not going to do life sciences recruiting anymore. I really don't care enough about the industry, about the market sector to really invest in running a whole business in that field. And so I just kind of like didn't do recruiting for 2 years. At that point, one of my colleagues, actually my past colleagues, said, there's a big market for recruiters. The minute she said that, I was like, done. I just knew intuitively, commercially, there is a humongous market in recruiting agency recruiters. And funny enough, it is a market and sector that I'm extremely passionate about. And it would allow me to do all the rest of the things I do. Writing books, training, coaching, recruiting. So everything is then solved because I found a sector that I actually was intellectually curious about. And that's the only sector that you should set up your own business in. Otherwise, you will find yourself, what are you going to do after 4 years of being not that interested, right? You can make a lot of money, but what's the future, right? So I think even though there are a lot of market dynamics about the rec-to-rec market that isn't as attractive as my old market, again, unequivocally, most recruiters would never do rec-to-rec. I see that uniquely it fits my needs.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, there's a kind of trope in recruitment that everyone falls into recruitment. So I love stories about people saying, yes, I choose recruitment. As you say, you could be on a beach right now, but instead you said, no, I want to work not just recruiting, but recruiting for recruiters. So that's double the fun in your eyes.
Right.
So let's talk more about that. Recruitment, as you say, not everyone values it, and our clients, sorry, as in recruitment agencies' clients,
right,
don't always value what we do.
Right.
So what ideas do you have how do we make recruitment more valued by our clients?
I don't think you can change somebody who is a cheap person, right? So as a recruiter for recruiters, a lot of recruitment firms, ironically, they don't see the value of the difference in, let's say, 5% fees. So a lot of my competition charges 20%, 25%. And a client will say to me, well, they charge 20%. Just by the book, I wouldn't pay 30%. And I'm just like, do the math. Do the math of what the actual fee difference would be, considering that most recruitment agencies pay on a low base, high reward structure. So even if it is a high base, it's a relative high base. It's not a real high base. So you're never really going to pay, regularly 30% off of, let's say, $200,000. You're never, ever going to pay that. You're likely going to pay 30% off of, let's say, an average of $70,000. That's $24,000 compared to, let's say, 25% of that number, which is a marginal difference. It's probably the tune of $2,000 to $6,000 difference, right? So then it becomes almost a joke to really walk them through how elementary this is. And a lot of it is just basic math. And some people are just not good at math. And it's not that they're willfully not good at math, it's that they're ignorant. They don't want to step back and strategically think about, if I get a biller in here, yeah, I'll pay an extra $6,000 to maybe $8,000 in fees. But this person right away is going to do a deal that covers this $30,000 fee or this $24,000 fee. This person could come in and earn, let's say $400,000 for my business. I've now 10x'd the fee. The fee is now 10% of their yearly revenue to me. or more, or 7%, or less, 7 to 10% of my yearly revenue off of this person. Specifically in the rec to rec market, it's laughable that a firm would look at a 30% fee and not understand how to pull out a calculator and really think commercially, what does that mean for my business? Because that person has residual income for the organization. It's not like other industries where it's not performance based. Because let's say an accountant, that person's not necessarily driving revenue unless they're in a partner seat. So an accountant is just like a cost, right? They're just like doing a job for X dollars an hour. But a recruiter, if they're any good, is earning revenue for you. So that math needs to work. But some people are just cheap. They just don't see it. And this is the small business mindset. This is the same that goes for the person that desperately is not performing at a level they need to perform at, whether they're an individual producer or a business owner. They are not doing it right, and they don't want to invest in coaching. They don't see the value in it. And albeit, yes, a lot of coaches are not good. A lot of them are scam artists that try to sell, automation tools going to solve your recruitment business. Oh yeah, that's going to really work. Right. I get it. There are a lot of scam artists in this business, but genuinely true, good coaches, first of all, aren't going to be cheap, and they're worth it if your business is not doing well. So a lot of people are just they won't invest in those things. And there's nothing you can do to change that person's mind because they're a grown person. They've already made up their mind. And so as a recruiter in any market, you need to pick and choose your battles, and you need to know what to fight on. I'm not going to convince a cheap person not to be cheap. That's asking a glutton to go on a diet. You cannot be expecting people to change their nature. You can only work with what you got, and you got to pick and choose how you're going to react and what are you going to put your energy into. So that's my view around the value in recruiting. It's you have to be talking to the people who understand the value of services and goods and products.
Yeah,
those people are going to appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even if you take a lot of people drink coffee, but if you're Starbucks, you're not trying to sell coffee to people who don't drink coffee. You're trying to sell coffee, and maybe no one likes Starbucks anymore, but if you're a high-end if you're a high-end coffee producer, you're not trying to get someone to pay $15 for a cup of coffee who doesn't like coffee very much.
Right.
You're finding the people who say, yes, I love this. I want to come back for this. I want to go out my way to find this coffee.
Right.
So I think that's a really, really good piece of advice. The other thing I see, I think recruiters don't know when to give up the fight, as you say, and just say, oh, I'll choose my battles. I'll go and find someone who does value what I do. But then there are probably varying levels of cheapness. There are the clients who say, well, I want to pay you at the lowest end of what you're willing to agree to. The problem is when we then give them the same level of service, so we create the same value for them as someone who didn't negotiate. And I always find that slightly cringeworthy when it's hang on, your best clients, the ones who really value you, you work really hard for them and you create value. Someone beats you down, says they don't value what you do, and you work just as hard and you give them the same level of service. I just think, that doesn't seem fair, which is one of the reasons why what I recommend is you have different levels, different tiers of service,
right,
with different levels of value. If you want a cheaper service, you get lower value.
Sure.
Then that conversation becomes, oh, well, hang on, no, I want to be cheap and I still want to travel first class everywhere. So, hey, guess what? You can't. If you want to be cheap, you get crap coffee.
Yeah.
You get
sit in the back near the toilets.
Exactly. Yeah. And you get a low level of recruitment. Whereas if you're one of my best clients, if you're willing to pay for the service, then let's agree to enjoy that. Again, it comes a bit back to your lifestyle thing. Let's enjoy this. Let's make the most of this. Everyone is talking about AI powered recruiters, but what does that actually look like? With Atlas as your CRM, it means every interaction with your candidate is automatically captured and searchable. If they mention their salary in an email, it's instantly recorded without you having to write anything. And behind the scenes, Atlas discovers every company that a candidate has worked for, the industries those companies operate in, as well as things like company size and description. All this means you can do your job much faster and add more value to your clients. To learn more about Atlas, go to recruitwithatlas.com. Let's talk more about value. A lot of people, when they've been in the industry a while, or people who come into the industry say, wow, recruiters often undervalue what they do. And I think that's true. I think we have a fairly low sense of self-worth, and that then affects pricing and fees and even client relationship. Now, you work a lot with new people to the industry or relatively new recruiters. You've written a book on how to thrive in the recruitment industry. So what's your advice to people new to the industry? How do they understand how important the industry is? How do they value the service, the industry they're entering and the service they're going to be giving to their clients?
Right. I think this is really dependent on what you're coming into the business with, because not everyone's equal on this front. And this does make a big difference with the success and failure rate. So when I got into recruitment, I already had certain skills from previous jobs that gave me an edge. And while it looked like it was easy, how fast I was picking up the job, a lot of those skills I had learned because I was working since the age of 14. And a lot of people that started with me who did not succeed, because I worked at one of those big, grueling agencies that very few people are at the top and everybody else is kind of in the bottom. Unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues who did not do very well in this business, they just did not have the same level of work experience and work ethic. So this is something that it's very hard to teach someone. If somebody is just not working hard enough and they just want to leave the office at 4 and clock out and go to the gym and they have other priorities, they're not going to rise to the top of the billing leagues, because at the beginning of your recruitment career, as everybody says, there is a steep learning curve. And so there has to be a deep desire to commit to this business, learn the ins and outs, and implement it on a regular, consistent basis. And so that's why a lot of recruitment agencies, the ones that people succeed at and have a good chance of succeeding at, are in the office, are in person, because you have to be working around other people who are successful, and you need to be around them, and you need to absorb that culture, that vibe. It's very hard to manufacture that as a 22-year-old sitting alone in your room, tiny closet in New York City. It's really hard to manufacture that kind of environment in your own home. So I think that it's challenging for junior people because it depends on how you're set up, depends on your manager, depends on your training apparatus, depends on the market you're in. Do you take any interest in it? But to your point of what is kind of making everybody's life difficult, all of those technicalities aside and structures, environment aside, is this fear. It's fear. I'm a nobody. I've never done really any recruitment. I've only done, let's say, one deal a month. If that, I mean, that's good. For a junior person on a direct hire desk, if you can do one deal a month, you're looking at already, you're in the running for top rookie status. So, especially if you're in a niche market. So the issue here is the lack of confidence. When they're talking to a client, hey, oh my God, I'm so sorry I'm disturbing you. Oh, I'm so sorry I'm calling. I'm sorry I exist. They are sorry. And this is not going to work. And I knew that instinctually from the first moment I picked up a phone to call anybody. It was just like, if I am sorry, if I'm already halfway losing this game, if I'm already on the losing team, there's no point to even making a phone call. You're just going to embarrass yourself because you already admitted to yourself that you are a loser. So why even call? Why even call if you are already the loser? Don't call, right? So that's why mindset and attitude, self-worth, it comes from within. It doesn't come from how many deals have you done. It doesn't come from, oh, how many clients do you have? A lot of this is fake it till you make it. So you don't tell a candidate or client, I've never done a single deal in my life. You're the first guinea pig. Whoop-de-doo. Let's do it. It's not something you say. And for somehow, I don't know how I survived that first year of recruiting without ever having to tell people how many deals I did or what gives me that. I just made it. I don't know how. I commanded the phone. I commanded the conversations to a point where my credibility was never questioned, even though I was a new recruiter, right? And I was calling clients day one of my job. Half of my job was to call clients because I had no clients. I had no jobs. I had no candidates. I had no jobs, right? So I had to manufacture a desk from nothing. And so I think a lot of this is fake it till you make it. And that is kind of like superseding superpower that survives and will get you to the top regardless of what structure or environment you're faced with.
I like it. And I think, yeah, as you say, that scenario about being sorry is so important. A client, a hiring manager doesn't want to be managing you. They don't want to help you. So actually, it's not just, fake it till you make it is a good phrase, but it's not just that you're faking it. You're actually providing a better service if you come in and say, I'm confident. I know what I'm doing. I don't need your help. Because if you're going into a hiring manager and saying, hey, can you give me some stabilizers? Can you help me here? I'm not sure what I'm doing. The client, the hiring manager is just thinking, oh God.
Are you the right person to talk to? It's so weak and it's not going to fly, right? These people don't have time on their hands. They don't have time to mess around with you, right? There's a bunch of people calling them. They get to make a split decision in 5 seconds. Is this person going to get any more of my time? Or are they some 22-year-old recruitment consultant? This is their third day on the job and they're just going through their rounds. I mean, they're old. Hiring managers are old. They know what the deal is. They've been in the business. This is not their first rodeo. So you kind of have to follow that structure and do what the great recruiters do. Do what the great headhunters do. What do the great headhunters do? They do not apologize. They don't shamefully pick up the phone and feel sorry that they exist and are obligated to do their job out of like fear. Like, no, they do it from a place of authority and a place of confidence where they know their value. They know what they're here to do. They know the business value they're creating. They know why they're better than their competitors. They can back it by both evidence and attitude and work ethic. And that again supersedes how many years you've been in the business. So this is my first year in the business. I have my full attention and ability to support these searches. I don't have hobbies. I don't have a family to attend to. I can just focus and work on the job 7 days a week. That is an unbelievable competitive advantage that I think too few people really understand when you're 22, 23 years old. And you can say that confidently to a client. You can say, I can come and meet candidates. I meet candidates on weekends. Do I do that now at the ripe old age of 37? No, but I sure as hell did that when I was 23. So, there are certain competitive advantages that exist even when you have absolutely nothing to show for it.
Yeah, no, I like that. And clients want to be managed as well. They want to be told not to do. It's not that you have to have been in the market for so many years or have made so many placements. They need to be reassured that you can take on the hard work. And as you say, as a 23-year-old, that might be your competitive advantage. You can work harder, longer over the weekends. Whereas, someone with a kid says, I'm not giving up my Saturday and Sunday because I don't have a Saturday and Sunday to give up. Yep.
And we all know this to be true as a human going through different life stages. We know this to be true. And it's not discrimination. It's just explaining this is my competitive edge. And if that's your competitive edge, and let's say you are a parent and you work weekends, that's still your competitive edge. If you have family help and you got stay-at-home spouse and you're just like, no, I work, 90 to 100 hours a week, talk about it, right? Like whatever is your competitive edge needs to be stated because it does differentiate you to your point of value. It shows the value embedded in the fee and why is that different? And those are some of the differences is that, okay, on weekends, I'm actually meeting these candidates and taking them out to lunch. And every single candidate we submit is pre-met. I've actually met these people in person and that all of that converts to value. That's why the percentage cannot be the same as all my competitors who are just sitting home and working across overseas and they have no relationship with the candidate. Ours is like, constant, and this will continue during the search. We'll be meeting up after debrief. We'll be grabbing coffee in person. We'll be going, all of these are sales tactics and sales elements that you can incorporate into your so-called pitch or your engagements with your clients.
Yeah. And I think, you touched on a really good point there as well. You shouldn't just be thinking, oh yeah, I'll agree to match a competitor. Like you should have your superpower. You should have something that differentiates you. The minute you say, oh, we'll match someone else. Yeah. In your example, hang on, we're meeting these people face to face and you want me to match someone who's virtual, who's never seen this person or never sat down with this person, never shared a coffee, never got a vibe for what it feels like to be in the same room as this person. That is a different service. That is a different experience.
Right.
So yeah, that's probably my biggest bugbear around pricing is when people say, oh yeah, we'll all just agree to match. It's almost like negative price fixing. We'll all agree to come down to a horribly low price.
We're not selling like, Reebok shoes and we're not Walmart, right? So it's not like, oh, we'll price match. It doesn't work like that. It's a totally different business and it does matter. And to your point of this value concept, something I've always said, both for my candidates when I negotiate for them, as well as myself when I negotiate for myself, is the term value. The candidate does not feel valued at X dollars. It's not about statistically, technically, does that fit market rate? That's beside the point. They just don't feel valued. It's very hard to quantify value because it's subjective. It's completely subjective. It's not objective because you could be even offering a top candidate 95 percentile, of the market rate, and the candidate will feel undervalued because they're already at 95 percentile in their current company. And to make the jump, they need more value. It's just the juice is not worth the squeeze for them, right? It's not about technically and statistically what makes sense from a market rate perspective. And same goes for recruitment fees. Just because the average fees are at 20 to 25%, that doesn't make me feel valued to roll out of bed and to pick up the phone and recruit for you. I just don't feel like any value to doing that. I only feel valued when I'm at the rate that I'm at, 30%, and when clients are talking to me at that rate. Other than that, I'll just be chilling on a beach somewhere. I'll be doing something else. Like I won't work for under that. It's just not worth it. It's just not even worth it. Like I won't even do it, right? So everybody has a different place in their career and also in their niche. In the pharmaceutical niche, you're not going to get 30% from Johnson & Johnson, no matter what you say. There's just certain things that will not happen in certain niches because of how the value is from the client side. And that's something I don't think we've discussed yet. But in certain markets, there are certain clients that are so desirable to the firm, depending on how the firm operates. So let's say there is a big recruitment firm that is rapidly scaling. They want the McDonald's account. They want the tier 1 Fortune 500 accounts. They'll go for 20%. That won't fly at a boutique. At a boutique, I don't want 20%. I'd rather poach out of that company at 20%. I'd rather take the candidates out and sell them 30%. So every firm, it just depends on your strategy and it has to fit the business. This is why we talked earlier about the differences between large recruitment firms and boutiques. Even the pricing structures that they offer are different because of this need to think about their revenue streams. Right? Large recruitment firms, they have a host of staff. They'd rather win the Johnson & Johnson account. Screw it. 20%. We'll take it. Everybody else will feed off of the machine. At a boutique, it's just me and 6 other buddies. We'll hold out. We'll poach from Johnson. We'll sell to somebody else for 30% or 28% or 25%. Right? So I think these are all strategies and factors that impact the term value, because as we've discussed a few times, how subjective it is depending on various factors.
Yeah. And that's a subjectivity is huge. Yeah. The psychology of value, the psychology of price is massive. As you say, it's all about context. So that 95th percentile salary that someone's on, that doesn't feel like the best salary in the world to them. They're looking at who's above them. So we're always competitive. We're always thinking, well, what am I missing? What else is there? I mean, other psychology, there's so much, but yeah, the price you put on your service influences how the client perceives the value. So if you say, yes, I'll match someone at 20%, they then say, oh, well, that must be your value. So even though price is a measure of value, price is also a signal of the value you're getting or not getting. So there's a kind of circular issue. You start cutting your price, people value what you're doing less. We talked about confidence earlier. People are less confident in what you do. Yeah, you can get into a downward spiral that's not great. So both for yourself and in terms of the other recruitment agencies you're working with, I'm interested in where recruitment goes from here. My belief is recruitment agencies will always be around in some form. We're agile and we change, but how are you seeing that change happen, and how are we creating value in the future for our clients?
I think the recruiters that are using the tried and true methodologies of recruitment are going to be very valued in the coming years. And the tried and true methodologies of recruitment, I'm talking about very high level writing skills, very strong communication skills, both from a digital perspective, as well as from a public speaking, conversation, personality. That's what's going to be your big differentiator as you continue to live in this AI-enabled world. You need to invest heavily into your personal brand. It is a wake-up call for every single person. If you want to stand out, you have to rise above the noise. The only way to do that is to join the fray. You have to have some sort of online presence at a very bare minimum. But the X factor is the ability to pick up the phone and drive cold calls, drive conversation building, drive relationship building, because so many recruiters are not doing that well. Still, they're not doing that well. This is a lot of the training that I do is helping people get better on the phones. Their technical skills are not, their tactical strategies are not correct. There's a lot of things that people are missing from their conversations. They're not driving enough value from the discussions and the ROI on their time that they're spending with the candidate. They're just having aimless conversations. So a lot of this is just like, if you know how to have these conversations, you know where to squeeze, when to squeeze, what information to squeeze, what you can get from every single conversation. That's how you increase the effectiveness of your time. And a lot of people are scared of the phones. So a lot of people won't even want to be on the phone. If they're on the phone, they're only doing it for the bare minimum amount of time that the candidate or the client is allowing them to speak, which again is a humongous missed opportunity, because you can actually drive a conversation for double the length. But nope, they're scared. They're not really trying to build a genuine relationship. They're just trying to get the information, get in and get out. So I just think that this is going to be a forever problem. Just some people are just going to need the majority of people are going to need phone sales training, calls training, interpersonal communication training. This is why they're not a $700,000 biller. This is why they've never billed over $500,000. It fundamentally lies in their inability to have amazing conversations, then systematically converting those conversations into relationships, and then leveraging conversations to continue driving value from those relationships. And this is why recruitment will never die, because of the noise that I just talked about. There are so many companies hiring. There are so many people looking for jobs. It's all noise. There needs to be somebody to synthesize all of this data. And that's why LinkedIn is the best example of why recruitment will never die. LinkedIn theoretically could eradicate the need for recruiters because it is your directory. The answers to the test are all on LinkedIn. Your next hire is on LinkedIn. But are you going to go through the 30,000 people to find that next hire? You're not. You're going to hire somebody else to do it. So this is the same thing no matter what happens with AI, because AI is just, it's not perfect. We already know, anyone who's using AI knows it's not perfect. They have severe limitations. And it's not going to say, hey, out of these 30,000 people, this person wants to move right now. I've had a conversation with this person and I know that they're not happy at the job. How would AI know? It wouldn't. It's impossible. I mean, how many platforms would AI have to synthesize in order to come to that conclusion, which may or may not be correct because they haven't had a conversation with that individual. So recruitment will never be replaced because LinkedIn was the best thing that could have replaced it, and it already did not work. So I just don't think anything else can. It can all be leveraged, however, for recruiters to make more money than ever. LinkedIn has allowed agency recruiters to make more money than ever. AI tools will allow agency recruiters to make more money than ever. So all of these tools are assets that will help us make more money than ever, help us gobble up more market share, making recruiters even more indispensable in specific niche markets.
Yeah. And the one thing that really comes out from, it's such a brilliant description, but the adjectives you use, amazing conversations, incredibly deep, rich relationships with the candidates. Moving job, choosing to move to a new company is a huge decision. The idea that a bit of text on LinkedIn is going to persuade you, that is not going to get the best people to move. So yeah, as you say, it's not just even an average conversation with an average recruiter. When you're a great recruiter having an amazing conversation with someone, that is priceless. Most people can't deliver that, and technology, that's not technology's sweet spot to be having that level of depth. So right. I love that view of where we're going and how important we are in the future. I also like to think about what can we learn in recruitment from other industries. So in recruitment we talk a lot about recruitment. Yeah, fair enough. I'm sure other industries do. But there are so many other industries out there. Now, you mentioned at the start, you've had a successful second career, I guess, in real estate and investing, and you've also done and do a lot of coaching. So for those non-recruitment parts of your career, what have you learned that's valuable for your recruitment work?
Well, I think they're very different. Real estate, I do a lot of short-term rentals. It really is a very different business. However, I would say for recruitment specifically, what I've learned over the years, what is very similar to recruitment, I think are two industries. One is the real estate buying and selling, the inventory, this idea of buying and selling. And then real estate agents, some of that is somewhat interesting. But I do think I actually think law and medicine are the two areas that are very similar to how recruitment firms and recruitment people should think about how they're speaking to clients. Think about law firms and how they market themselves, how they, even the limitations law firms have. They're not allowed to talk about certain things in their legal practice, but we don't have those constraints as recruiters. We can use amazing case studies to drive conversations. There's no bar association, for instance. So I think there's some cautionary tales when I look at the real estate market, like realtors. And people ask me sometimes, they're like, hey, do you think recruiters should set up our own equivalent of that? I'm like, hell no. We don't want to be regulated. We don't want to have the issues where somebody could sue the realtor association and impact every single realtor in the world. This is a humongous bad thing, right? We can watch those industries and say, that's what not to do. That's a clear what not to do. Because what has happened to the real estate industry is an absolute sham in the USA. It's a shame in my eyes, because you look at real estate commission fees, they're at 5 to 6%, 4% in certain markets. And that's gross. The fact that it's that low for an asset that really it requires a lot of work by multiple parties. Anyways, I'm going way too deep into that sector, but that's a good cautionary tale of what not to do. Legal, I think there are some things that we can take from it. The way they treat themselves, the way they value themselves, the way they charge for conversations, the way they charge for consulting. A lot of recruiting people do not charge for consulting. And yes, I understand that sometimes you work at a large recruitment agencies, there's certain things that you cannot charge on. But when you run a boutique, when you are in a boutique, when you work for yourself, you should be selling multiple services, not just recruitment, right? There's consulting services. If a client wants to hire you for a compensation analysis, that's not free. Why should that be free? That's not just, it doesn't go into your contingent fee. Remember, that's contingent, right? Even retainers work. Retainer isn't just free money. It's retained work. You're doing work, right? So that shouldn't be involved and shouldn't be included in retained service either. It's a separate service fee. Whether it's how should I manage my staff? How should I be looking at, what are the important things? What are my competitors paying? These are all services in which we should be charging for, just like the legal industry does. They are not working for free. Lawyers are very cautious of their hourly rate, who they're messing around with, who gets their time and energy. So I love that. Love the legal industry. I think there's a lot to be learned. As a real estate investor, I deal a lot with lawyers and I love how they operate. I love the way they their energy. If you ever talk to a good lawyer, they're just like a recruiter. They're to the point. They're direct. They're no fuss. They're very sharp. They can deliver you the solution. Legal is a great industry.
And my guess is, in your experience dealing with those lawyers, when they say, yeah, you pay me, I'll consult with you, I'll give you a really good answer. Because you're paying for that advice, I imagine you value that more than if
right.
another lawyer came along and said, oh, I'll just give
yes.
you a load of advice for free.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge red flag. Like, what's wrong with this person? Why do they have so much time on their hands? It's questionable. And then also, whenever a lawyer gives you their hourly rate, it makes you really targeted on what you're trying to get out of that hourly rate. Sometimes they also retain you, right? Sometimes when I do evictions, I pay a retained fee, like $3,000. Like, okay, you cover this thing. Actually, it makes it sound really cheap over time, because of how many hours you really get out of them. But I think another industry that is similar to recruiting that we can also learn from is the medical industry. So like doctors, specifically this one thing, which is like, how do doctors diagnose problems? Right? They ask a bunch of open questions. They don't trust the candidate, the person is telling you the truth. They may or may not willfully be telling the truth or not. You don't know. Like your candidate sometimes is telling you what you want to hear, but sometimes they're just also completely ignorant of what to say. They might be telling you too much. They might be telling you too little. So doctors have a really uncanny ability to say, you have this illness. I know, because now we've had all these discussions. This is your problem. Here's how we're going to solve it. That's what we need to do as recruitment professionals on both the client side and the candidate side. And I try to explain this to candidates. I'm the doctor. I'm diagnosing your problem and I'm telling you this is the problem. You either can listen to it or not. Like this is going to be your solution. Leaving firms isn't going to be your solution. You could waste my time. You could waste your own time. We could look at a bunch of companies. It's not going to solve your underlying ailment. You need to have this discussion with your manager, right? So these are the different things that I think save me time as a producer. Whereas I think a lot of other recruiters would just take the candidate's word for it, the client's word for it. They don't really try to diagnose the issue. They just kind of go with it. And then meanwhile, you're solving the wrong ailment. And that's how a lot of people waste time.
And there's a great analogy in pricing circles, which is quite a small set of circles, of when there's a brain surgeon, let's say, if you're the patient, you don't go in and tell the brain surgeon what to do.
Right.
The brain surgeon tells you what they're going to do. They're in control because they are the expert. And to your point, recruiters too often are like, oh, what do you need me to do?
Right.
And that reduces authority and reduces that perception of expertise and value.
Right.
Whereas actually most clients want an expert. You sit down with a hiring manager, they're like, oh, I just want someone to take this away and solve it. I want someone who's good to get someone great in.
Yep.
But if we act as subservient, we're saying, oh, how would you like to run this? So hang on, aren't you the expert?
Right.
You know the best way to
Yep.
find these people.
Yep. And I think the two most impactful things that recruiters can impact with client conversations specifically is remote versus on-site, that discussion. And then the second one is pricing, right? Like salaries. Those are the two easiest places for a recruiter to come in and say, how can I increase my candidate flow? I need to get rid of these two massive issues. And a lot of candidate dry markets, we need the flexibility to work remote and hybrid. And in a lot of candidate dry markets, we need higher salaries. And to be able to push back to clients and say, you are priced at, by doing X, you are now limiting your candidate pool by Y percentage. That's the value that a recruiter can bring into the discussion. Just like a doctor would say, by eating more, fried foods and carbohydrates, you're going to increase your risk of heart disease by 40%, right? This is the type of conversation. These are the data points that will make a huge difference when you're having legitimate conversations. And that's how you differentiate yourself. Back to the question of how do you differentiate yourself? You're having better conversations. You're providing more value on those conversations. You're educating the clients and candidates, not to say that you won't take on the rec. You're just putting it out there so that later when you represent these candidates, later when you need these extra doors to open, you've prefaced it and you have that conversation open for, well, what if I get the candidate for you that's about 10,000 more than what you're asking for? Are you really going to say no? And then of course they're going to say, well, I'm not supposed to say yes, but just like that would be the last case scenario. Lots of times that's just what it ends up being. Like your salaries are way out of whack, right? So when you have these confrontational discussions early on from the beginning, when you're dealing with these clients and candidates, whatever they are, these contention points, you're going to have a much better run recruitment business because you've dealt with the hard stuff up front instead of leaving it for later and try to make things work where people then feel that you're doing a bait and switch.
Yeah. And that's interesting. That's definitely a mindset shift for a lot of people. The value is in the confrontation, which feels, a lot of recruiters are people pleasers as personality types. So you think, how can I do everything I can to make my clients happy, to get them what they want? So it feels very confusing to them, to then realize what they want, what's best for them is confrontation at the start in the right way. But that is more valuable than just saying yes to whatever the client says.
Right. I've had situations where we've had a negative interaction with clients. And after that, they come back and they're like, hey, I actually really want to work with you. And I'm like, no, now I don't want to date you anymore. Like it's come to that. Like, no, you get one shot and you show me who you are. And I'm not going to, as a professional, I can't risk my time when I've already seen your true nature. Right. So that's just a personal decision. If financially I needed that client, I could very well say, sure. But the fact is, to your point, like when you are, nobody likes a smooth sale, like as a customer. Like if everything's just perfect, everything is great, everything is wonderful, something is wrong. That's how the psychology works from a buying perspective. Whereas if you sell something, if 50% is good and 50% is bad, and the person's telling you, hey, this might go wrong, hey, that might go wrong, here's how we're going to deal with it. The credibility of that salesperson increases infinitely. Right? Because someone who acts like nothing is ever going to go wrong, everything is just going to be great, and we're going to come in and everything's just going to be awesome, and everything you want, sure, everything you need, yay! That person is suspicious. There's something wrong with that. So this is just like typical training. Don't ever sell something perfectly. Even if you have to manufacture one or two issues just to make sure that also the customer, it's the same thing goes for the customer. The customer, everything is yes, 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 yes. Something's wrong with that customer. Why are they not pushing back? Why are they so cool with all of these crazy demands I have? Right? So on both sides, it's a red flag if everything is too perfect.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of this brings us back to an earlier point of, it's really powerful to be then selective with the client. So if you have that challenging conversation and they don't react well, then you think, well, you're not the type of client that I want to represent to some really important high value candidates. And likewise, if it's super smooth sailing, then you hang on. Maybe you're not engaged. Maybe you're not actually listening to what I'm saying.
Right. Right. Yeah. So like, I like your idea of the spectrum. There's that spectrum, the two extremes. You want something in the middle.
Yeah. And you find, individually you find what's right for you. But you can pick the right clients who value you, and you will have probably more success and a better life to go with it as well. We've covered so much today. I'm so pleased you're able to join us. I'm glad you're not on a beach somewhere. I'm glad you're still in the industry. You're adding value. As I say, you've got the book, you've got your podcast. If people want to check out more, I'll put the links in the show notes. But yeah, you really add value to the industry. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much, John. I love what you're doing and sharing the messages to empower recruiters to ask for more. So thank you for what you do, because I think that makes a huge difference to people's outcomes.
Brilliant. Well, I think we both agree the future of recruitment is strong, and it's exciting, and it's good to see how we get there.
It's a good industry to be in. Still a good industry.
Agreed. Brilliant. Thanks very much, Dandan.
All right. Take care.
Thanks again to Dandan for sharing her insights and experience with us. 3 things stood out for me. First, the importance of projecting authority and confidence. Clients are looking for partners who believe in their own value, so it's key that recruiters at all levels come across as people they want to work with. Second, Dandan's idea on what we can learn from the legal and medical sectors. We can diagnose problems better than our clients, and we should be in a position to charge for the professional advice we give, and not only get paid when we make placements. And third, the value recruiters will continue to deliver in the future. Technology can offer a lot, but for game-changing results, businesses will always need a great recruiter to get the job done. If you found the show valuable, please leave a review and remember to subscribe or follow the show on your podcast app. You can also get more insights and inspiration by signing up to my added value emails on Substack. You can find the link in the show notes. Now, go create some value. Thank you to Atlas for sponsoring the Value of Recruitment podcast. To learn more about how Atlas is creating an AI platform that helps recruitment agencies generate more placements with less effort, visit recruitwithatlas.com.